Dr. Hunter was working diligently late one night in the basement of her laboratory with her gorgeous young assistant, Tyrone Jenkins, when suddenly an explosion occurred and she and the young man were thrust violently back in time to a prehistoric era where dinosaurs roamed the earth and prehistoric creatures were everywhere. What is she and the young assistant to do? How can they survive in this treacherous terrain? Who will assist them in their escape? Is there an indigenous tribe of people who will help them return to the future? Or will Dr. Hunter and Tyrone Jenkins be forever trapped in the past? In order to find out what happens next, purchase your next copy of Triangle of Primitive Love, available for 10 cents at your local newsstand. Hello, this is Elizabeth Griffin, the Black romance writer, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about my current fascination with pulp fiction writers and pulp fiction magazines. And I blame this obsession on George R.R. Martin, who, as many of you know, is the writer and the creator of the phenomenal series of books Game of Thrones, which was made into an HBO series that millions and millions of people around the world tuned in and watched. And I, of course, was one of those fans, which inspired me to create a video about the life and the writing and the career of George R.R. Martin. So while watching a YouTube video, I heard the author mention Harlan Ellison, and I had never heard that name before. But George R.R. Martin spoke of this man in such glowing, beautiful words and terms that I decided to investigate. And the reason I did was because George R.R. Martin had mentioned that this particular writer, Ellison, had said that in order to be a really good writer, and I'm paraphrasing, you need to write from your gut. You need to bleed onto the pages of your work or of your manuscript. And I thought that advice was interesting, and I had heard it before, but I was never able to associate it with Harlan Ellison. So, because of George R.R. Martin, I decided to delve into the life of Harlan Ellison. And I like his name. I think it's very unique and unusual. But anyway, in doing so, I discovered that he was a pulp fiction author who got his start writing short stories for the salacious pulp fiction magazines. His career obviously transitioned from that stage into a very lucrative and a very productive writing career. And he has been accredited with writing scripts for Star Trek, as well as other writing accomplishments. When I look back at the crazy, frenzied pace in which these pulp fiction writers were producing stories, and I look at the beautiful artwork and covers that these stories were embedded in, I realize that these writers and the current indie writers of today have a lot in common. We too are producing stories at phenomenal rates. We too are publishing at a fast pace. And we too are designing salacious covers to compete with other writers, because we are all trying to get your attention. We are all trying to get you interested in our writing. I draw inspiration and get a feeling of excitement when I listen to the audio version of The Catwoman by Mary Elizabeth Councilman, or her other weird tale, which is The Three Marked Pennies. I get a surge of hopeful energy when I think about Edgar Rice Burroughs and his creation of Tarzan, or Dashiell Hammett, who my father loved. My father and my brothers and I would sit down and watch the black and white version on television of The Maltese Falcon and The Thin Man. And I knew the titles of these movies even before I knew that Dashiell Hammett had wrote them. So thank you, Dad, for such a wonderful time and such wonderful memories. And for those of you indie writers out there, or beginning writers, or struggling writers who need another push, another shove, another reason to continue on your writing career, think of Frederick Pohl, H.P. Lovecraft, and L. Ron Hubbard. And if that isn't inspiration enough, then take a moment and do your own investigating and find your own favorite pulp fiction writers. And for those of you out there who are struggling with cover designs, who need inspiration in that area, check out two female illustrators who I would like to highlight because I think they need to be remembered for their amazing work and their amazing contribution to this particular era and time. And those two women are Margaret Brundage, whose work appeared on the covers of Weird Tale, and you can recognize her distinct art and illustration by her pastel colors and her very erotic and feminized version of women in varying stages of erotic undress. You can also look at the brilliant illustrations of Gloria Stoll-Karn, whose covers were predominantly shown on romance pulp fiction magazines. For me, the Black romance writer, I have found a new appreciation for short stories and for short storytelling and for creating brief moments of escapism for my readers. And I also understand that in today's time, there are lots of readers who don't want to read novels, who don't want to read sagas, but who instead want a short, quick, breezy read while they go to work, or while they're waiting at a doctor's office for an appointment, or while they're waiting to pick up their children. And I, as well as a lot of you indie writers out there, can produce this type of fiction. So I believe that we can learn a lot from examining the pulp fiction era and the amazing way in which short stories can be told, and learning the structure from the experts who were forced to write quickly and to produce quickly and efficiently. There are so many lessons to be learned in examining the pulp fiction era and the writers of that time period. And for me, some of the takeaways are that you are not going to be an overnight success as a writer. You are going to have to dedicate a lot, and I do mean a lot, of time in writing and doing research and creating cover designs and concepts. And I'm also understanding that all stories don't have to be long stories or novels. There are some ideas that I have, and I'm sure you have as well, that will not fill up the pages of a novel, but they can find a home in the short story genre or in the short story medium. So for me, as I said, I'm learning from the best, and I have ordered quite a few books about pulp fiction writing, about the authors who proliferated that time period, and about the cover designs. So I encourage you, as writers and also as readers, to look at pulp fiction literature and to look at that era and that time and to look at the types of stories that were being told. And if you see perhaps some pattern or some resemblance in today's time of that era. And as I said, I equate the pulp fiction writers of the past with the indie writers of today who are writing for penance, for little money or no money at all. And I can tell you, and I can attest to you, that my financial gain in writing novels and in producing audiobooks is minuscule. But I do it because I love the art, I love storytelling, and I get just as much enjoyment out of creating stories as you get in reading my stories. So I do this out of love, but I also want to make a profit. And I also am in it for the long run. So you will be seeing me produce short stories with prices of 99 cents. You will also see me producing novels that can range from $2.99 to $4.99 because I want to make a living